welcome back to the Secrets of Happily Ever After. I am so excited for my guest today. He is an old friend and become a very good friend. He is Dan Purcell. He and his wife, Emily, are the founders of Get Your Marriage On. Their marriage went through a bit of renaissance a few years ago, and they wanted to share what they learned with other couples. They created a fun and sexy bedroom game app called Intimately Us that has been downloaded over 300,000 times. They put on events and retreats for couples. Dan is the host of Get Your Marriage On podcast, and he also coaches others on marriage and intimacy. Dan and Emily have been married for 19 years and have 6 kids. Dan loves cracking dad jokes, running marathons, planning the next creative date night with his sweetheart, and enjoys the magnificent outdoors around their St. George home. Welcome, Dan. How are you doing?
Really good. Happy to be here.
Yes, it's been a little while, but so fun to reconnect.
Yes.
So I'll start with the same question I've asked all the experts on this summit, and that is, if you had the undivided attention of all the couples in all the world for just a few minutes, what's the most important concept you could teach them about how to live happily ever after with their spouse?
This is such a great question. I've thought a lot about this, like deeply, and I can answer this really abstractly, like, I don't know, be more courageous or something like that. But I think people are coming to the summit for more practical, actionable advice. So I'm going to answer this probably in an unorthodox way and say, really focus on your sex life, because of all the parts of your relationship with your spouse, your sexual intimacy is really the only thing that makes it really unique. And it's just the intimate nature of the sexual relationship drives your development as a couple forward. Like, to have a really good sex life forces you to be courageous, to look at your issues. It helps you. It puts you in positions where you need to be more authentic and honest with yourself and with another. Also, there's a lot of allowance for like acceptance and just really caring about the other individual in order to have a really good sex life. So if you kind of make that your goal, everything that is required to build that quality of a sex life is also the ingredients needed to build a really good just relationship in a marriage to live happily ever after.
Okay, I love that answer. That is a fantastic answer. I would agree completely. So my next question is, why do you think couples fall out of love with each other or move into these sexless marriages?
Yeah, I'm sure there's as many reasons as there are couples. And when you first meet someone and you fall in love, there's a lot of this love. They call it the love without knowledge stage. That's like state number one, because you don't know a lot about them, except you know that they really like you back. And that feels really good. Like, finally, someone agrees with me that I am awesome.
Right.
It feels really good, right? To be liked. I kind of reminds me of middle school, where when you get the whiff that someone else likes you, all of a sudden you like them back.
Yeah.
That's kind of
You're like,
built
oh
in.
my gosh, I like
Uh-huh.
you too.
Exactly. That attraction is absolutely wonderful and beautiful, because without it, people wouldn't get married in the first place. But that's really the first stage. That's like, there's a lot of love without a lot of knowledge. And then you start living with them. You share bills with them. You start raising a family together and going through just the pressures and stresses of life. Then you move into the second phase, which is knowledge without love. So that's when you're like, okay, this is the sweatpants phase. This is like, you see the ugly and the dirty and the not so pleasant sides of yourself and of your spouse as you go through things. And it's easy to, quote unquote, fall out of love, because in the first phase, it felt blissful because there was love without knowledge. But now there's more knowledge, so now you got to kind of inform. That's more informative of kind of who you're with. And some couples just stay stuck in that second phase. To get out of it, you need to grow into what I call love with knowledge. So first is love without knowledge, then you go to love without knowledge, and then you go to love with knowledge. And it takes some courage to really choose this person, like, despite the sweatpants or despite what it is, I'm going to really choose you. kind of put it in a uh, um, kind of in the background, like a Christian faith background. You can think of this as creation, fall, and atonement. If you think of it in that pattern,
Mm,
it's we need to move. So couples are stuck in the fall phase. It's that middle phase. They need to learn the atonement, so to speak. That's to raise you up and get you even further and better than you started with. Couples fall into a sexless marriage for a number of reasons. They stop prioritizing one another. They stop. Um, uh, it's like two Venn diagrams. Like there's the parts of me, and then parts of my spouse, and then just where we overlap is really about where our conversations can be, the things we can talk about, and we avoid everything else because it makes one or both of us uncomfortable. And
mhm.
so that avoidance of things creates patterns where you start avoiding sexual intimacy. So that I think people quote unquote fall out of love because they've really exhausted the things that they're comfortable with and aren't comfortable pressuring themselves or each other in addressing the additional things that they need in order to keep growing and developing. So they don't choose that path because it's uncomfortable. So they kind of stay steady as status quo, and the love kind of dies as a result.
Interesting. Interesting insights. So I know you work a lot with men. You do a lot of men's groups. So I want to know, what can husbands do to get more of their wife's attention?
Oh, such a great question. And if I had the answer to this, I'd be a millionaire, maybe a trillionaire. If I had the answer, like take this pill and all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well,
But
I mean,
that's
I
not
can tell you from a wife's perspective, there's that middle time, maybe you would call it that knowledge without love time, where the wife is busy bearing children and, cleaning house and like maybe working on a business or career, and she's just busy and distracted. And when she doesn't have a spontaneous sex drive, it's really hard for a husband who can take care of himself and do his own thing to capture more of her attention than her kids, who can't do for themselves and need constant attention. So what's a husband to do?
yeah. So um well, first of all, you can be realistic about your current if that's the case, right? You're in the middle of the childbearing years and just things are crazy. Be a little more realistic about what's going on. And another thing you can do is stay in connection. It's easy to disconnect when you feel like your wife is kind of in a world of her own, and it's like two ships passing the night.
Mhm.
And if you keep that up too long, you're going to lose that connection with your spouse. So even when it's really hard, make it a priority to have a date night. And date night to me is not let's go to shopping or
Go to
let's
the movie.
I mean grocery shopping, right?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
it's a date night is not a time to work on your family budget. Date night is time to have fun together. So it's a time for you to be adults. You can be irresponsible adults if you want to, but just to be like uh, friends. Like you need time for that. And I remember like we have 6 children. So this was in and our oldest is now 17, our youngest is 5. So we've kind of been in the thick of this. And I remember it was my turn to pick date night, and I had just called my 8th babysitter and got a no. And
No.
it was so discouraging. Like I really, really wanted time with my wife. We had planned, I think I bought tickets to a play or something. It was so hard. Like it's tough. It is really tough sometimes. And anyway, I just have a lot of compassion for families that are kind of in that middle stage. There's also like a lot of men I talk to um, complained that they wish their wives desired them. Like
Mhm.
they want their wives to like, I just want to be wanted. I want to be wanted sexually. I want her to like chase me down because she wants
Right.
to, do me or whatever. Like they really want want that. But so the way they go about getting it is sometimes not very helpful. It actually makes the situation worse and pushes things away. So I teach men and I counsel them really how to, how to where to put your focus and what matters there. For example, I saw this recent video on YouTube. It's like a 30-second clip of a guy trying to chase a new kitten down. Come here, I want to love you, kitten. And the kitten's running away from him through the house. Like, come get me. And like, come on, I want to pet you. I want to love you. And the kitten's just running away. And that's often how a lot of men go about trying to get the attention of their wives. Or they do another approach where they read online that chore play is foreplay. Like, I'll go, and so they have this idea, if I do more dishes, if I put the kids to bed, if I draw a bath for her, she'll have no option other than just feel so turned on by all these things I'm doing for her. She'll just jump my bones tonight. And then it doesn't happen. And then they kind of get really upset that they did all those things and they didn't get the result that they wanted, thinking it's formulaic like that. And it's not. And so I counsel them, rather than focusing so much on being desired, focus on your own desirability. What can you do to be more desirable? And when you ask that question honestly, there's a lot that men can do to be more desirable themselves, to be more loving themselves. And that's really sexy and attractive.
Agreed. I love that. So when a husband feels like he's not getting the sexual or physical attention that he's looking for, I know that kind of the default is to become very undesirable and doing some of those things that you were just talking about, or pouting, or getting really grumpy, or refusing to do things, right? So like those are some very undesirable behaviors. What can a husband do when he feels like he's not getting the attention he wants that is more desirable?
Well, it's going to be situation dependent, like in your marriage. So I'll tell you a quick story about me. My wife and I were having a discussion about our kids and parenting or something, and my default is to get really defensive about this certain topic that comes up often because I disagree on a certain method about doing things. But when I break it down and really think about it, I panic that her way of going about things is because of a weakness within her. And so she's compensating for that weakness by parenting in a method that I don't think is good for our kids, which may or may not be true. I don't know. But it's my panic and the way I react to that makes me really undesirable, because guess what? I stop listening. I stop listening to her point of view. I stop really like forgetting that we're on the same team. And now she's more like my opponent. And I can get really good at debate. I can get really articulate if I need to. I could get really logical. So these are all the tools in my tool chest that I like to pull out, because in the name of doing what's good for my kids, I've lost that connection with my wife in the process. So the better version of me is now better at keeping my panic in check and just really being good at listening and thoroughly listening. And it doesn't mean I have to agree with everything she says in that moment, but there's definitely a different quality, a different vibration, a different channel, I guess, when even though I might disagree with what she's saying or how she's going, she still knows I have her back. She still knows that I'm a safe person for her to just dump her brain out and explore, like, her mind and just explore thoughts too. And I can kind of keep myself at bay. That's easier said than done sometimes, but that's one thing that I've learned how to do a little bit better over the years, is to just really listen and to listen with my heart and kind of reserving judgment and stop and kind of keep my own panic at bay.
Okay, very good. So you've got in every couple, and actually every aspect of marriage, not just sexuality, we've got it in parenting, seeing the in-laws, keeping the kitchen clean, all of the things. You've got a higher desire partner and a lower desire partner. But let's talk about sex.
Yes.
How do we go about closing that desire gap when one of us is high desire and one of us is low desire? How can we come to a win-win compromise situation?
Yeah, that's well the most number one complaint that couples have. And it's not always the husband with the higher desire either. Just the more I do this work, I don't know, uh, it appears to be just as many wives that have higher desire as there are men that have higher desire. So I guess one thing to remember is desire is always relative to the other person. Like I am higher desire or lower desire relative to my spouse. It doesn't mean I automatically am high desire or low desire. Kind
Mhm.
of like I married my wife, she's a little shorter than me, but it's very possible I could have married someone else that was taller than me,
Right, right.
right?
Mhm.
It's all relative. Um, I think really good couples just accept that one person will always have higher desire, one will have lower desire, but they have the I guess what do you call it? Like a collaborative alliance. Like they're both willing to like be good team players and work together to what's good for both people in the marriage. And they've just had this ability to go, okay, I know like if I'm the lower desire spouse, I know sometimes I'm gonna jump in and say yes, even though it's harder for me to get there. Sometimes I will work on getting myself there because I know it's really good for the marriage and what it does for us. And for the higher desire spouse, you know, you're going to recognize there are sometimes I'm going to temper my desire for because I love what because I prioritize this aspect, this collaborative alliance we have as a marriage. So it really becomes like a negotiation.
Mm.
There's a lot of books or podcasts and like blog articles of like different couples that have solved this problem in their own way. They don't automatically translate to others. Like some couples might really advocate for scheduling sex because that
Right.
seemed to have worked for them.
Mhm.
And the thing about scheduling that works is when the desire gap is very, very wide. Sometimes the higher desire spouse is very anxious because they don't know when sex is going to happen next. They're like, when's it going to happen? I don't know. Like they're anxious because
Like, is it gonna happen?
yeah, is it going to happen? They don't know. Is it going to be tonight? Is it going to be tomorrow? I don't know. So sometimes scheduling on the calendar helps them like calm down. It's okay. Friday night, it's going to happen. I'm okay. Like so that's one reason why scheduling works. The other reason why scheduling works for the lower desire spouse is it takes some
Right.
thought work to get yourself to that point, and knowing that Friday is my time to really be intimate, get into my body, I can work myself and work on my own desire to kind of get to that point. Um, so that's like one method that some couples have advocated for. But no matter which method you do, if you do scheduling, I recommend it's not scheduling sex per se, but scheduling the minimum physical uh, connection that you will never say no to. Like you'll probably never say no to like Monica, I know you, so you'll never say no to a great makeout session. Like
Yeah, you
you'll
do.
always say yes to that, right? So it's
Yeah.
not so much scheduling sex, it's
Anytime, anywhere.
you're going to schedule a makeout session because you know you'll never turn that down. For others, they like massages or they like cuddling. So that's what you're scheduling. You're scheduling what is the minimum physical contact I'll never say no to because you want that. Of course, you want that. And then once you're there in that space, you'll find yourself a little bit easier to transition to something a little more sexual or playful or whatever it is. So that's one method that I've seen couples
I
use to
like
kind of
that
close
one.
that gap. But in the end, it's a negotiation and it's a way of just working really well together.
Okay, very good. Well, the thing is I've heard about scheduling sex forever, but you explained it really, really well. So I love that. So let's switch gears and talk about the Intimately Us app and how it can be helpful in all of these areas that we've been talking about.
Definitely. So the Intimately Us app is free to download on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. And you sync it with your spouse. So your spouse downloads it too, and you get a code and you sync. And there are several aspects of it that really work because we're talking about, how do you create that marriage, that happily ever after? And one of the things that makes it special is every day you get a prompt of something small. It usually takes 5 minutes or less to do that you can do for your spouse just to show a little bit of love. And you can build up a streak, try to get so many days in a row. And the idea is you're putting your marriage top of mind. This is a tool that helps you with creative ideas and how you can serve or love or whatever in your marriage every day. And even if you don't follow that prompt exactly, it's just the idea of what can I do today to strengthen my marriage today, even if it just be one little thing. Because I believe over time, doing little bits every day will get you much further and stronger in your relationship than sporadic yet big monumental things. It's the daily things I think will lead to a much stronger marriage.
I like that. A Gottman quote comes to mind. It's the small things done often that make the most difference, right?
Yes, yep. Yes, exactly. John Gottman inspired a lot of aspects of this app. Like there's conversation starters, which John Gottman, he calls them, I forget the terminology he uses, but we call them conversation starters. These are prompts to spur conversation. But I think the funnest part of the app is all the bedroom games. These are sexy games that you can play. You can adjust different settings of them to match your comfort level. And they're spicy, they're fun, they're exciting, and they add a lot of novelty to your intimate activities in the bedroom.
Awesome. I love it so much. So I would encourage everyone to go and download the Intimately Us app and share it with your spouse. Let them know you're ready for some fun and mixing it up in the bedroom. Please let them know where they can find you and learn more about the Intimately Us app.
Great. My website is getyourmarriageon.com. Instagram is getyourmarriageon. And Intimately Us, just search the App Store for Intimately Us.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
To learn more ways to deepen your intimacy and strengthen your relationship, make sure you watch this video next